Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spring Institute of our dual pandemic online learning through Renzulli learning system and systemic racism with emphases on diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. We welcome Toni Kubousek today from Renzulli Learning Systems. She is a director of professional development there, and she has a wealth of experience to share with us. So welcome, Toni, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Connie. Hello, everyone. Great to see you again. I'm excited about today. Type 2s are exciting. That's where the students begin to start developing, or not begin, but increase their creativity training, their critical thinking through research and development. So we're going to go through the student site and the teacher site, and I'll give you some examples of what type 2 behavior looks like. And we'll talk a little bit about how these practices actually do build up and create creativity training and critical thinking in each student. So I'm going to pop over to the student site. And last week we talked about type 1s, and type 1s are constantly introducing your students to new topics. And we demonstrated and looked at ways kids could use Renzulli learning for type 1s. They can explore their enrichment activities by genre or by subject matter. They can use their differentiated search engine. As Connie mentioned, if you're focusing on diversity, and inclusion and belonging, kids can search those words to look for more activities and ways to look at those topics in ways that maybe we didn't think about before. So type 2s are what happens after type 1s. Type 1s is the introduction, and then type 2s are students taking that and going, wow, that is so incredibly interesting. Let me do some research on that topic. So first, let's talk about type 2s as in the enrichment activities. Creativity training and critical thinking are two of the icons for the students. You can actually direct them into those areas, and they could actually do activities that focuses on creating a more diverse look at injustice, systemic racism, inclusion, immersion, and through critical thinking and creativity training. So I'm just going to open up one of these just to give you a look at what this looks like. It focuses on ways that students can really develop those creativity training skills. And really, what does that mean? It means for students to be able to look at resources and really examine them and decide how to use that information when they're collecting data and information. And is the site reliable? Is it biased? Is it only speaking? Am I doing an activity that only pertains to a small group of students? This is just a great area for students to go into and really develop those kinds of skills. Same with creativity training. This area is also focusing on giving the students activities that really hone in on those critical thinking skills. And I know myself, one of the hardest things for me when I am collecting data and research for investigative work that I'm doing, I have to ask myself questions, right? Is this relevant to why I'm collecting the information? Does it meet the needs of my final goal of all of my research and data? So those are the kinds of things that students want to practice, and those are the kinds of things that we want them to be able to develop. So exploring their enrichment activities is a wonderful way for students to develop those critical thinking and creativity training skills by practicing them in the icons. Now, the other piece of type 2s are the students actually doing investigative work, inquiry-based learning, collecting data and research on the topic that they are focused on. So let's say, for example, you are working on something in class and you want them to do some research and understand the concept better. The journey of collecting that data is a type 2. Also, maybe they're doing a passion project, something that they're really interested in, something that is very meaningful to them. And as they're collecting their data and information, they are experiencing the type 2 of Joe and Sally's. Their differentiated search engine is really the pièce de résistance of type 2s, of students being able to collect that data and information in their differentiated search engine. And a couple of reasons why this, to me, and I tell kids that have Renzulli learning, is so superior to Googling or any other search engine, because when they do their searches, the results are age and grade appropriate. So if they're in the 4th or 5th grade, they're not getting material for a middle school or a high school student or a kindergarten student. And not only that, the results match their profile. So that's pretty powerful, right? If let's say I'm doing a project on the Statue of Liberty, on immigration. Immigration is one of I love to collect data and research on immigration. I love to compare and contrast the differences in the United States on immigration from the early 1900s to present day. What's changed? The populations now, how are they different? How can we meet the needs? Back in the early 1900s, how did government and communities meet the needs of the immigrants coming in? And those are all ways that I am using that critical thinking, those skills, comparing and contrasting. So I'm going to type in immigration, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to search my enrichment activities first. And I am going to look for resources to take notes for my research on immigration. So I see there's lots here. Even Australia's connections with the world. How cool would that be to look at different countries and their immigration practices compared to the United States? Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty. The Erie Canal from 1825 until the rise, the Erie Canal was an important transportation for immigration. So that would be an incredible site for me to begin my journey. So when I go into the site, what am I looking for? I'm looking for information focusing on immigration that meets my goals, that meets my objectives. Sometimes I tell kids, I may be thinking, okay, I want to compare and contrast immigration in the United States from the early 1900s to present day. But after I start doing my research, I think I might focus a little bit more on the United States compared to other countries and how their immigration laws line up to ours. So again, students are using those critical thinking skills and develop creativity training by doing the research and development. The thing about type 2s is that type 2s can be ongoing, right? For example, type 2s can be instituted when you give the students keywords for them to search. For example, if you're studying a unit or you're working on something specific, Every time you give the kids keywords to do research, they are experiencing that type 2 experience. So the differentiated search engine is a wonderful place for students to gather information and data. So I did show you last time that we met. For example, I can type in, let's say, social justice, and I can do a search. And my first search is activities that match my profile. So let's see what we have here. So we have Jewish Woman's Archive, the Feminist Revolution, 7 inspiring young activists for social justice. So this might be something that you could even look for on the teacher site and share it with your students. This would be a great way to introduce social justice to your students, is introducing them to 7 young people. Can you imagine how amazing is that? Whoops. In addition, students can also, when they search, I love that I can see I have 2 videos and podcasts. Guns, Germs, and Steel. How cool is that? So I can even look at the types of activities, and I tell kids, I don't know why any student that has Renzulli Learning would want to use any other research engine for type 2s. So I'm going to stop just for a second, ask if there's any questions regarding the enrichment activities or the differentiated search engine. All right, please interrupt me if you have any questions. I'm just going to go into my projects real quick. We're going to really, the next time we meet, we're really going to dive into my projects because those are the type 3s. But I do want to show you some of the examples in the projects of type 2s that are available to the student. So if the student does chooses a super starter project, and I'm going to go down to social action. So here's one on Africa, African American history. Create a public policy. Now, how cool would that be for students that are focusing on systemic racism or inclusion? How cool would that be for them to research, get a better understanding, like those young activists, those 7 young activists, and then actually creating a public policy if they could institute such a thing. So I'm just going to go in for this 1 second, just to show you what the area of students gathering information, the type 2 process looks like. So I'm going to open up all of these websites: violence against women, wellness policies, brainstorming, looking up policies for your state, understanding that, research logs, state and local data statistics, if you need statistics on social injustice, your congressional district, teaching students how to contact their local constituents. But all of these, the students going into these areas, collecting data and information, are type 2s. Another thing too is students that are not in the United States, they may want to use their creativity training to figure out how are they going to collect the information in their region, in their country. How are those laws set up? How do they reach out to their local politicians or their local people in government, since they're not in the United States? So that is in the projects. That is the piece of type 2s and the planning piece that students will see. And remember, whenever a student gets engaged, interested in a topic, whether it's something they're learning in school or something that is an internal interest to them, every time that they seek knowledge and they seek information, that is a type 2. And you want students to really think about where they're getting their information from, how is it relevant, and how are they going to use that data and information? What are they going to do with it? And that's, Joe is a huge proponent on type 2s. And he says, Dr. Joe Renzulli will even say that many times type 2 leads to a type 3, right? But not always. Not, sometimes they go right back to a type 1 and start the type 2 all over again. All right, so any questions that you might have? All right, so I'm going to go over to the teacher site. And there are ways that you can provide your students resources for type 2s. So let's say, for example, you would like to find some activities on social justice to send to your kids. So I'm going to go to the Teach tab, because in the teacher site, that's where all the curriculum lives. And I'm going to go down to my search engine. This is how a teacher searches, is the Teach tab and the search engine. So the student has a differentiated search engine, and the teacher has a search engine that you can actually apply filters. So I'm going to type in social justice, and I'm going to choose the grade that I teach, I'm looking for. And I can even tell Renzulli Learning the types of activities that I want. So let's say I would like some research sites, because I'm gathering data and information. Let's click creativity and critical thinking. See if there's any critical thinking or creativity training focusing on social justice. And then I'll like maybe some videos and podcasts and online. So I'm leaving out, like, I don't want summer programs. And that's what I love about Renzulli Learning. You can tell Renzulli Learning what you don't want to see when you're doing a search, and absolutely tell them what you do want to see. So it's going to bring up some sites. So here we go, Academy of Achievement. How one neglected American town was revitalized. So let's take a look at one of these. Wow, this picture was taken July 20th, 1917. So women were a force of nature from the very beginning, right? and they can research these women's biographies. So this might be something that you want to share with your kids. And all you have to do is click the share button. Choose the students that you want to receive this website and click submit. And then that activity will be in your students' inbox. They'll get a message saying that you sent them this activity, as well as it automatically saves it to their favorites. So I'm going to ask some of you some search words that may be something you're working on, or you want your students to do some investigative work. So what are some key words that you might use to look for your students? No? Okay. All right. So another one that I wanted to show you, an activity that has a lot of incredible skills for the students to use: critical thinking, creativity training. These are focused on issues that we deal with every day. These are more for students probably maybe in the 4th grade and older. There are a couple that I have used with 3rd grade. Access to water, is that a human right, is one that I've used. And if you type in your Renzulli search engine, think along with no spaces, and make sure all of your filters are off. I'm going to take off all these filters because I know exactly what I'm looking for. In many of these, you know, I tell teachers, just students being able to do the type 2s in these think-alongs and being able to decipher pros and cons of an issue, not looking at it always in one way, thinking about, does this topic affect me? Does it affect other people? So here are some of the topics. Is there a right way to protest? Has feminism helped women gain equal rights? Is access to water a human right? We'll look at that one. Should everyone eat a plant-based diet? This one I love. Should historic buildings be preserved? This would be a great one for no matter where you lived. And these are just some examples of these think-alongs. Should we eat more bugs? Should maps be considered works of art? Should women be required to register for the draft? Is nuclear power a better option? Does donating money advance racial equity? Let's look at that one. Every think-along has a teacher lesson guide. Every think-along has a graphic organizer and a contemplation sheet for the students to think about what they're watching, what they're listening to, or what they're seeing. Because each one of these has brought, some of them have videos. This one has podcasts, reading, thinking deeper. who created these messages. So, for example, they'll open up listen, and the first one is big talk from Big Tape on racial equity, but not all workers are buying it. The Minnesota Freedom Fund raises donations to bail out protesters. Black Lives Matter Network established 12 million grant fund. Thinking deeper into the topic. 3 ways to show up for radical justice today. And I love the fact that the contemplating piece, it asks the students to think about what kind of text it is. How similar or different is it in others of the same genre? What do you notice about the way the message is constructed? What's the emotional appeal? What makes it seem real? What's the emotional appeal? Persuasive devices used? How many other interpretations could there be on what they listened to or read or watched? How could we hear about them? How can you explain the differences? What's being sold in this message? What's being told? Who is served or benefited from this message? The public, private interest, individuals, or institutions? So if you want not only for students to be able to, if you want students to be able to use creativity and critical thinking, these are the types of questions students should be asking themselves when they're doing their research, their type 2s. These are the types of questions they should be asking. And then once all of the type 2s, all of the research and data is collected, now students have an opportunity to debate the question, does donating money advance racial equity? Yes, it does, and why? And no, it doesn't, and why? So these are great ways for you. For example, if you wanted to do this with your kids, whole group, small group, you could save it, add it to your favorites. And if you want to send it to the kids, you just click share, choose the students you want to share it with, and click submit. And that activity will be waiting in their inbox, and it automatically saves it to their favorites. And these think-alongs, they have so many different issues that you can look at. And again, I love these for type 2s because it actually asks the questions that students need to ask themselves, and that develops their creativity training and their critical thinking skills. This is one I've actually done with kids. I did this one. Is access to water a human right? And this one, if I can find it, maybe I passed it. Should historic buildings be preserved? So anyone that you go into, everyone has a lesson plan, the graphic organizer, and worksheets for the students. This one actually has a video that the students can watch. Oh, that's the investigative tool. I love these. This is where the students keep their notes, and they can actually type right into these, and they can save their work, and then they can bring it back up, and they can continue working. Oops, let me go back here. So let me open up. Here we go.
I'm on the east side at Creole Kitchen, and this is where I'm meeting Kathy Nelson for lunch. She's a retired educator, local historian, and preservation activist.
Yes.
Kathy, your family is from somewhere right around in this area, right?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up on the Near East Side. My grandparents lived at 1611 Pembroke Avenue, which is right on the other side of Pilgrim Elementary School, if you know where that is.
So again, I just wanted to show you that these are maybe things that you could use in your classroom to get students working on and developing their critical thinking and creativity training through their through those think-alongs, and provides them with the questions that they need to ask as they're working through collecting their data. Also, no matter what you're teaching, diversity, and I can put in my grade level. Maybe you want to look for diversity for younger grades. And it will bring up a list. Teaching tolerance. So this actually is something that you could use with your kids, or you could send it with them, send it to them. And I love the fact too, in Renzulli, it's only a click of a button to be able to share these activities with your kids. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions. Just another example of where students can practice their type twos, either by you sending them activities or, excuse me, or them searching on their own. Another way to send students activities for them to practice type twos is through lessons, differentiated lessons. I absolutely love lessons because it looks at what I'm teaching, and it looks at the grade I'm teaching and the subject that I'm teaching. And then it actually sends the students activities on that topic that match their profiles. So I'm just going to show you how to build a lesson real quick. So I'm going to go to the Teach tab again, because the Teach tab is where all the curriculum lives. And from the Teach tab, I am going to choose Lessons. So I'm going to choose a new lesson. And I am just going to complete the drop-down menu. So let's say I teach 5th grade. And let's put in social studies. And these are, so here's civics and social action. So let's look at that. So I can use any one of these. I can look for character development, citizenship, or I can just leave it and it will look for all of them. If I wanted to look at others, I could look at cultures. If you're studying other people's cultures, that's another option. So let's go with cultures. Now, the default is for each student to receive 7 to 10 activities on different cultures that match their profiles. And you can change this. So let's say that I really want my kids to have lots of opportunities to do type 2s, lots of opportunities to collect research and data and develop those creativity skills and thinking skills by the question that I ask. So I'm going to change this from 9 to, let's say, 12. And now I'm going to click next. And when I choose next, the box comes up. And there are 1,934 resources on culture, but my students are only going to receive 9 to 10 that best match their profile. So these activities are not only each one of them a type 2, but they are differentiated for each individual child. So I'm going to click customize because I want to add a question. And when I choose customize, it brings me to the results. And I really don't have to do anything on this page. I can just click next. So you can do a KWL, attach what do you already know about cultures? What do you want to know? What did you actually learn? You can choose from a series of questions that are already written. They're open-ended questions. There's a lot of higher order thinking questions here, comparing and contrasting, synthesizing your information, summarizing your information. So you can pick one of these, or you can write your own question that you would like, or 2 questions, or 3, as many questions as you need. So I'm just going to attach a KWL. And after I've done that, I'm going to click next. And I want the students to simply explore the activities. And answer the question. A due date, and then, and then I'm going to send it and I'll have it due the end of March. I can attach a file. I'm going to choose the students that I want to receive this lesson. And now I'm done. So before I assign it, I'm going to preview it, see what it looks like to the students. The first thing that'll pop up is the K. So they can, if I did a, what do you already know? So the students can tell me what they know about culture. And then I can even look at the students and see what activities that they got for the topic. Notice when I click Kelly, her activities are completely different than Ben's. So that's another great way. And think of these as every time the student goes into one of these activities, they're type 2s. Each one of those is a type 2, providing the students to collect data and information. So lessons is another great way for you to think of a keyword something that you're studying, and provide students with activities to do their research and data collecting, and exercising critical thinking and creativity when they start to answer those questions that you've attached. So any questions on the lesson? I can even go in and I can select my own, let's say for subject. Whoops. Let's say for subject, I'm going to put in social studies. And instead of choosing one of Renzulli's topics, I'm going to write my own topic. And let's say I want to do them to do, have some activities on social, or let's say racism. And I'm going to leave it 7 to 10. Oops, did I spell it wrong? Let me go back. I did. I was going to say, sorry about that. So I see that when I click the next button, there's 68 resources, but my students are only going to receive 7 to 10 that best match their profile. And now I'm going to choose customize because I want to add a question. There might be something in here you want all the students to receive. For example, the biography of Nelson Mandela. If I require that, that means every student's going to get it regardless of their profile. And I think for this topic, I'm actually going to have my students write a poem, using descriptive words or alliteration. I would love to see some really creative poetry after they've done their research. And it's explore. Due date and an end date. Choose the students that I want to receive this. And now I'm going to preview. And I see that here's where they're going to write their poem. And let's see, these are the activities that Ben received. There's the one that I required. Everybody's going to get the biography on Nelson Mandela. And these are the activities that Ben received. If I go, let's go down to Kelly. Notice Kelly has the biography on Mandela, and these are the activities that Kelly received. Isn't that cool? So all the students are going to write a poem on systemic racism, but each of them are going to pull their information from different areas, and it's all differentiated to them through their profiles. Now, if we leave today and you have questions, if you go to the Teach tab and you go to Lessons, you will see that there is a gray box and you can watch a video. This is a teacher tutorial that will walk you through creating lessons, how to send them, how to monitor them to see what the kids are doing on their lessons. So anyone have any questions that I can answer? All right, any comments or something something that you would like to know about that you've seen in Renzulli Learning? Another great place to get type 2s are in the toolbox. Notice that all these drop-down menus, there's nothing hidden, and going to top-rated student activities. And these are the best of the best in Renzulli Learning, and you can sort it by elementary, middle school, high school, or specialties. And then once you've chosen the age bracket, these there are art resources, character development resources, all of these resources available for you. And the results will come up. So here's one on maybe bullying. And it will bring up activities that you could send to your students just by clicking the share button. So what kids say about bullying. And whoops, I'm going to click next here. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Let me click share again. And I want to share with the students. So I'm going to check all the students. And on the bottom of the page, I'm going to click next. And you can share with teachers as well. And now that activity is waiting for the students in their inbox. And it automatically saves it to their favorites. So the toolbox is another great area for you to send students activities. Now, one more search I want to show you before we go that is great for developing creativity training and critical thinking. Dr. Joe Renzulli's one of his books. His activities are, his creativity activities are uploaded into Renzulli Learning, and I'm going to show you how to find them. So if you go back to the Teach tab and you go down to your search engine, and in the box, you choose New Directions. And then click search. It will bring up right around, I believe there are like 150 activities. And these are all focused on creativity training and critical thinking. So this is one of my favorite. There's comparisons, consequences. This one I actually did with my grandkids. These are incredible because they are PDFs, so you can download them and you can do these for morning work. You could do it for Genius Hour. You could put the kids in groups and have contests. But this is, sometimes it's fun to let your mind wander and imagine all the things that would happen if an unusual situation were to occur. For each of the following situations, list as many possible consequences as you can. What would happen if there was no such thing as darkness or night? 2 examples have been given. Cars would not need headlights. People who stayed up late would not be called night owls. And then what would happen if automobiles were banned tomorrow because of pollution? What would happen if everyone in the world suddenly became 12 inches tall? What would happen if there was no such thing as a mirror? So there are about 150 of these. Again, they are an incredible resource for you to use with your students in developing their creativity training and their critical thinking skills. And I just went to my search engine from the Teach tab. And typed in new directions. And click the green button search. All right. And there's just, so you can even divide them, like if you wanted just grades 3 to 5, you could do that and look at just the creativity training pages from Joe Renzulli that are just focusing on grades 3 to 5. But there are some great activities in here. There's even one about advertising. I love to have kids write advertisements based on facts, not what they think. And then we even record them. We've done where a group of kids would record the students' presentations. So any other questions? Any questions that you might have before we end for today?
Well, Toni, this is Connie. I hope you can see me here. Thank you. It's just always so good to have an experienced guide through this process. And I know you are available if anybody does think of something later on.
Absolutely.
All they have to do is ask. And we are looking forward to one more lecture with you next week on type 3.
Type 3 is Joe's Pierce de Resistance.
And speaking of French, happy Mardi Gras Day.
Oh, I didn't
Happy
even know
Mardi
that.
Gras. So we can say, laissez les bon temps rouler. Well, you're closer. Aren't you going to have some Mardi Gras parades down there in Florida?
We've already had them. We have our Gasparilla.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Like
We've
is
had
that like
all
an
of that.
alligator or
And
something different?
It's the invasion. The pirates come in and invade Tampa.
Oh no, okay.
Yeah, it's the second biggest celebration behind Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Okay, so there's a type 1 or
Yes.
For somebody to look at to
Yes.
look into Gasparilla.
Research, yes, research Gasparilla. I'll ask
Okay.
you questions next week.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to end the session. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening, the rest of a beautiful day here in Kansas, and I think in Florida too. Okay.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. All